She tore the ultrasound in half the day he married someone else. 2 years later, the Korean crime lord found her on a rain-soaked street, holding a child with his eyes. "That baby is mine," he whispered, and her world shattered again. She had survived alone. 3 jobs, endless nights, a secret too heavy to carry. But fate doesn't forget. And neither does a man who built an empire on never letting go. This is the story of the lie that kept them apart, and the truth that will burn everything down. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Afro-Korean love story that will stay with you long after it ends. I'm on a journey to reach 1,000 subscribers, and your support means everything. So if this story touches your heart, please subscribe and be part of this growing community. Now let's dive into a tale of secrets, second chances, and a love that refused to die. The rain fell like judgment on the streets of New York, cold and unforgiving. She stood beneath a broken awning, her son pressed against her chest, his small fingers clutching the fabric of her worn coat. He was 2 years old. He had his father's eyes, dark, endless, the kind that could swallow the world whole. She didn't see him at first, didn't feel the weight of his gaze cutting through the rain and the noise and the years between them. But he saw her, and the world stopped. Dante Kang didn't believe in ghosts. He'd buried too many bodies to fear the dead. But there she was, Amara, alive, breathing, holding a child who looked like every photograph of himself as a boy. The same sharp jawline, the same storm beneath the surface. His driver pulled the black sedan to the curb without being told. The bodyguards in the trailing SUV tensed, hands moving toward weapons they wouldn't draw. Not here, not in public. Dante's empire was built on silence, on fear that never needed a voice. He stepped out into the rain. His suit cost more than most people earned in a year, but he didn't care that it was getting soaked. He didn't care about anything except the woman who had vanished from his life 2 years ago, the day before his wedding to someone else. Amara. Her name was a prayer and a curse on his lips. She froze. The child in her arms stirred, pressing his face into her neck, sensing the shift in the air. Danger always smelled like expensive cologne and cold determination. She turned slowly. Her face was thinner than he remembered, shadows carved beneath her cheekbones. But her eyes, God, her eyes were still fire and defiance even now. Especially now. "Walk away," she said quietly. Her voice was steady, but he could hear the fracture beneath it, the crack in the foundation. "You don't belong in this part of my life. That baby." His voice was low, lethal. Not a question. A reckoning. "How old?" She said nothing. The rain poured harder, drenching them both. The child lifted his head, curious, staring at the tall stranger with the face that mirrored his own. Dante took a step closer. His bodyguards shifted, ready. Amara's grip on her son tightened. "How old?" "2," she whispered. The word fell between them like shattered glass. He didn't need a DNA test, didn't need confirmation. The truth was written in every feature of the boy's face, in the way his small hand clutched at his mother's collar, with the same stubbornness Dante had been born with. "You were pregnant." The realization hit him like a bullet to the chest. "At my wedding. You were carrying my son, and you said nothing." Her laugh was bitter, broken. "You were marrying someone else." What was I supposed to say? "Congratulations, you're going to be a father, right after you break my heart." The rain soaked through her thin jacket. She was shivering. The boy was shivering. And Dante Kang, the man who controlled half the underground operations in New York, who made politicians sweat and rival families disappear, felt something he hadn't felt in years. Helplessness. "Get in the car." "No." "Amara." I said no. Her voice cracked, but her spine stayed straight. "You made your choice. I made mine. We survived without you." He looked at her. Really looked. The exhaustion in her eyes. The way her shoes were worn at the heels. The second-hand stroller folded and strapped to her back. 3 jobs, he would learn later. 3 jobs to feed his son while he slept in silk sheets next to a woman he never loved. "You think this is survival?" His voice dropped to something dangerous, something that made people confess sins they didn't commit. You think I'm going to walk away now that I know? You don't get to decide. That baby is mine." The words were final, absolute. "Which means you're mine. You always were." The boy started to cry, sensing the tension, the electricity crackling between his mother and the stranger who smelled like rain and ruin. Amara rocked him gently, whispering comfort in a language Dante didn't speak but understood in his bones. She had loved their son alone, carried him alone, brought him into the world with no one to hold her hand through the pain. And Dante had been cutting a wedding cake, toasting a marriage built on family obligation and political alliances, while the only woman he ever loved was bleeding and broken and brave in a hospital room with no name on the birth certificate under father. "I'm not asking permission," he said quietly. Too quietly. The kind of quiet that preceded violence. "I'm telling you. You're coming with me. Both of you. And if I refuse?" He stepped closer. Close enough to see the flecks of gold in her dark eyes. Close enough to smell the rain in her hair. "Then I'll follow you. Every day. Every night. Every step you take. Because that boy..." His gaze dropped to the child, something raw and unguarded flickering across his face. "He's my blood. And I don't abandon what's mine." She wanted to hate him. God, she wanted to. But the truth was worse than hatred. The truth was that she still loved him, even after everything. Even after he'd chosen duty over her. Even after she'd torn that ultrasound in half and cried until she had nothing left. "You broke me," she whispered. "I know. You married her. I know. And now you think you can just..." "I don't think anything." His hand reached out, hesitant, stopping just before touching the boy's soft curls. "I know I failed you. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But that child deserves a father. And you..." His eyes met hers, and for the first time in 2 years, she saw the man beneath the monster. "You deserve more than this." The rain began to slow. The city's noise crept back in, sirens, voices, the endless hum of survival. Amara looked down at her son, at his father's face in miniature, and felt the weight of 2 years of secrets pressing down on her chest. "One conversation," she said finally. "That's all you get." Dante nodded. It was more than he deserved, more than he'd hoped for. "One conversation," he agreed. But they both knew it was a lie. Because men like Dante Kang didn't do halfway, and women like Amara didn't survive by giving second chances. This wasn't a conversation. It was the beginning of a war neither of them would win. And the child between them, innocent, unaware, was the treaty they'd both die to protect. The car door opened. She hesitated. Then with her son clutched tight against her heart, she stepped inside. And the Korean crime lord who never begged, who never bowed, closed his eyes and thanked to God he'd stopped believing in years ago. The apartment he took her to wasn't his. Too public. Too exposed. It was a safe house in Brooklyn, the kind of place that didn't exist on any map, where the windows were bulletproof and the neighbors knew better than to ask questions. Amara sat on the edge of the leather couch, her son asleep in her arms. She hadn't let him go since they'd entered. Hadn't let herself breathe properly. The apartment smelled like expensive emptiness. All modern furniture and no life. The kind of place designed for hiding, not living. Dante stood by the window, hands in his pockets, watching the street below. His bodyguards were stationed outside. Inside, it was just the 3 of them. A family that never was. "What's his name?" The question was soft, almost fragile. It didn't sound like him. "Elijah." She didn't look up. "Elijah Amara Baptiste. No last name from you. He doesn't need your ghosts." The silence that followed was thick enough to drown in. Dante turned from the window, his expression unreadable. In the low light, he looked older. Tired. Like a king who'd won every war except the one that mattered. "Elijah," he repeated. The name felt foreign on his tongue. Sacred. "Does he know?" "He's 2. Her voice was flat. "He knows his mother works too much, and his favorite food is strawberries. That's all he needs to know. That I exist. You didn't exist." The words came out sharper than she intended. Elijah stirred, and she softened immediately, rocking him gently. You were a ghost. A memory I tried to bury. You don't get to be real now just because it's convenient. Dante crossed the room slowly, carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. He knelt in front of her, his eyes level with hers. This close, she could see the faint scar above his eyebrow. The one she'd kissed 1,000 times in another life. I didn't know, he said quietly. If I had known, you'd have what? Left her? Abandoned the marriage your family arranged? Disappointed your precious empire? She laughed, bitter and broken. Don't lie to yourself, Dante. You made your choice. You're right. The admission surprised her. He never admitted fault. Never showed weakness. I chose wrong. I chose duty over you. I chose a woman I don't love over the only person who ever made me feel human. His hand hovered near hers, not touching, not daring. But if I had known about him, about Elijah, I would have burned it all down. The marriage, the alliances, everything. Pretty words from a man who deals in blood. Not words, truth. His gaze dropped to the sleeping child. He has my mother's nose. Did you notice? She had. Of course she had. Every time she looked at Elijah, she saw pieces of Dante, reminders of the man she'd loved, the man who'd destroyed her. I noticed, she whispered. What was it like? His voice was raw now, stripped of its usual control. The pregnancy, the birth. Was anyone with you? Does it matter? It matters to me. She was silent for a long moment, staring at the crown of Elijah's head, his soft curls damp with sleep sweat. Then, quietly, she began to speak. I found out 2 days before your wedding. I was late, and I thought, I don't know what I thought, that maybe stress was messing with my body. But I took the test, and there it was. 2 lines. Pregnant. Her voice was distant, like she was narrating someone else's life. I stood in that bathroom for an hour, staring at it, trying to figure out what to do, who to tell. If I should even keep it. Dante's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. I went to your wedding anyway, she continued. Wore a black dress. Sat in the back. Watched you put that ring on her finger and thought about the baby growing inside me. Your baby. And I realized, you'd never choose us. You'd never choose me. So I left. Amara, I'm not finished. Her eyes were dry, but her voice trembled. I worked 3 jobs. Waitressing during the day, cleaning offices at night, weekends at a grocery store. I was 7 months pregnant and scrubbing floors at 2 a.m. because rent was due, and I didn't have anyone to ask for help. I went into labor on a Tuesday. Alone. Took a cab to the hospital and checked myself in. No partner. No family. Just me and the nurses who looked at me with pity I didn't want. She looked up then, meeting his gaze. He was born at 3:47 a.m., 6 pounds, 4 ounces, perfect, screaming, alive. And I held him and thought, this is it. This is what love feels like. Not the love I had for you. Something bigger. Something that didn't break. A tear slid down her cheek. She didn't wipe it away. I named him Elijah because it means my God is Yahweh. And because I needed to believe something bigger than us was watching over him, protecting him from the world, from you. Dante's hands were shaking. She'd never seen him shake before. I'm sorry. The words were inadequate, pathetic. I'm so fucking sorry. Sorry doesn't feed him. Sorry doesn't pay for childcare or keep the heat on in winter. Sorry is just another word people say when they can't fix what they broke. Then let me fix it now. He reached out, his hand finally closing over hers. Let me be his father. Let me give you both the life you should have had. She pulled her hand away. You think money fixes this? You think your empire and your power and your blood-soaked legacy is what we need? No. His voice was steady now, certain. But it's what I have. And I'll use every piece of it to make sure you never have to work 3 jobs again. To make sure Elijah grows up safe. Protected. Loved. He is loved. I love him. I know you do. Dante's gaze softened. I can see it in every breath you take. You're the strongest person I've ever known, Amara. You survived what would have broken anyone else. but you don't have to survive alone anymore. I've been alone for 2 years. I'm used to it. You shouldn't have to be used to it." He stood, towering over her, but somehow still vulnerable. "I can't change the past. I can't take back the wedding or the months you suffered, but I can change what happens next. For him. For you." Elijah stirred in her arms, his small fist opening and closing. Dreaming, innocent, unaware of the storm brewing around him. "What about your wife?" Amara asked quietly. "Does she know you're here? Does she know about us?" Dante's expression hardened. "She knows I didn't marry her for love. That's all she needs to know. That's not fair to her. Life isn't fair." His voice was cold again, the crime lord returning. "She got the ring and the name. You got my heart and my son. I'd say you won. This isn't a game, Dante." "No, it's not." He moved to the window again, his silhouette sharp against the city lights. "But it's the hand we were dealt, and I'm done folding." Amara looked down at Elijah, at his father's face in miniature, and felt the walls she'd built around her heart begin to crack. Not break, not yet, but crack, enough to let the light and the danger back in. "1 week," she said finally. "You can see him for 1 week, supervised, and then we'll talk about what comes next." Dante turned, and for the first time since she'd known him, he smiled. Not the cold, calculated smile he used in business. A real one, small, fragile, hopeful. 1 week, he agreed. But they both knew it was another lie, because Dante Kang didn't do temporary, and Amara Baptiste didn't know how to stop loving a man who was half monster, half miracle. The war had begun, and their son, beautiful, innocent Elijah, was the only treaty worth fighting for. The first morning, Dante brought strawberries. He stood outside Amara's apartment, her real apartment, not the safe house, with a container of organic strawberries and no idea what he was doing. He'd negotiated million-dollar deals, orchestrated the disappearance of men who crossed him, built an empire on fear and precision. But standing in front of a peeling door in a building that smelled like old cooking oil and broken dreams, holding fruit for a 2-year-old who didn't know he existed, he felt like a fool. Amara opened the door in an oversized t-shirt and leggings, her hair wrapped in a silk scarf, exhaustion carved into her features. Behind her, Elijah sat on the floor surrounded by second-hand toys, building a tower of blocks with intense concentration. "You're early," she said flatly. "I couldn't sleep. That makes 2 of us." She stepped aside, letting him in. No bodyguards. That was the deal. "They're in the car downstairs. Dante, I'm not putting you at risk." His tone left no room for argument. "My enemies don't know about you yet. About him. But they will. And when they do, I need to be ready." She wanted to argue. Wanted to tell him that his world didn't get to invade hers. That Elijah didn't need to grow up surrounded by violence and paranoia. But the truth was, the moment Dante found them, the choice was already made. His blood ran through their son's veins. That made Elijah a target, a weakness, a weapon. "Strawberries?" She eyed the container. "You said they were his favorite." Something flickered in her expression. Surprise, maybe, that he'd remembered, that he'd listened. "They are." Elijah looked up from his blocks, his dark eyes landing on the stranger in the expensive suit. He didn't cry, didn't hide, just stared with that unnerving intensity children sometimes have, like they can see straight through to the truth of things. Dante knelt slowly, making himself smaller, less threatening. He held out the container. "Hi, Elijah." The boy glanced at his mother. She nodded once, permission granted. Elijah abandoned his blocks and toddled over, tiny hands reaching for the strawberries. Dante opened the container, and the boy grabbed the biggest one, juice dripping down his chin as he bit into it. "Thank you," Amara prompted gently. "Thank you." Elijah mumbled around the strawberry, red staining his lips. Dante's chest tightened. Such a small thing, such an ordinary moment. But it felt like the world was splitting open, rearranging itself around this tiny person who carried half his DNA and none of his sins. "You're welcome," Dante said quietly. Elijah studied him for a moment longer, then held out the half-eaten strawberry. You want? The offer was innocent, generous, the kind of thing children do without thinking. But to Dante, it felt like absolution, like forgiveness he didn't deserve. He took the strawberry, took a bite, and smiled. It's good, he said. Elijah grinned, showing tiny teeth, then ran back to his blocks. Crisis averted. Stranger accepted. In the simple logic of toddlers, sharing food meant friendship. If only adults were that easy. Amara watched from the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, guard still up. He warms up to people fast. Don't take it personally. I'm his father. I'll take it however I want. Biologically, yes. But fatherhood is more than blood, Dante. It's showing up, being present. Not just when it's convenient, but when it's hard. When he's sick at 3 a.m., or throwing tantrums in the grocery store, or asking questions you don't know how to answer. Then teach me. He stood, brushing invisible dust from his knees. I don't know how to be a father. I never had one worth learning from. But I'll figure it out, for him. She wanted to believe him. God, part of her still wanted to believe in the man she'd fallen in love with 3 years ago, before the empire and the marriage and the lies. But belief was a luxury she couldn't afford. He needs consistency, routine, not a father who shows up when his schedule allows. My schedule just changed. His voice was firm. Every morning I'm here, every evening if you'll let me, weekends, holidays, whatever it takes. And your wife? The question hung in the air like smoke. She has the house and the name, Dante said coldly. She doesn't have me. She never did. Does she know that? She knows what she needs to know. Amara shook her head. You can't just compartmentalize your life like that. You can't have a fake marriage and a secret son and expect neither world to collide. Watch me. Dante, I've spent 2 years living a lie. His voice was low, dangerous. Playing the perfect husband, the dutiful son, the man my family needed me to be. And every fucking day I hated myself a little more. But this, he gestured to Elijah, still playing contentedly with his blocks. This is real. This is mine. And I'm not walking away. Not again. She wanted to argue, wanted to protect her heart from the inevitable destruction. But the truth was, she was tired. Tired of working 3 jobs. Tired of pretending she didn't still love him. Tired of lying to herself that Elijah didn't need his father. 1 hour, she said finally. You can stay for 1 hour, then you leave. 1 hour, he agreed. He sat on the floor beside Elijah. The boy handed him a block, then another. They built a tower together, Dante's large hands clumsy around the small pieces, Elijah's laughter bright and unguarded when the tower inevitably fell. Amara watched from the kitchen, her coffee growing cold in her hands. This was dangerous. This domesticity. This glimpse of what could have been. But she couldn't look away. Couldn't stop herself from imagining mornings like this. Strawberries and blocks and laughter that didn't carry the weight of 2 years' worth of pain. When the hour was up, Dante stood reluctantly. Elijah grabbed his leg, hugging it with sticky strawberry hands. You go? Yeah, buddy, I have to go. Come back? Dante looked at Amara. She nodded once, barely perceptible. I'll come back, he promised. Okay. Elijah released him, already distracted by a toy truck. At the door, Dante paused. Thank you. For what? For letting me in. For not running. For giving me a chance I don't deserve. Amara's expression softened just slightly. Don't make me regret it. I won't. He left. The apartment felt colder without him. Larger. Emptier. Elijah played for another 10 minutes, then looked up, searching. Man gone? Yeah, baby, he's gone. He come back tomorrow? Amara crouched beside her son, smoothing his curls. Maybe. Would you like that? Elijah nodded enthusiastically. He nice. He share strawberry. He did, didn't he? I like him, Mama. Those 3 words shattered something in her chest. Because children were honest, unfiltered. They didn't know how to lie yet. And if Elijah liked him, if he felt safe with the man whose blood he carried, then maybe, just maybe, there was hope. But hope was dangerous. Hope got you hurt. Hope made you believe in second chances and redemption and love that survived betrayal. Hope was the most dangerous thing of all. She held Elijah close, breathing in the scent of strawberries and baby shampoo, and let herself hope. Just a little. Just enough. Downstairs in the black sedan, Dante sat in silence. His hands still smelled like strawberries. His suit jacket was wrinkled from sitting on the floor. And for the first time in 2 years, he felt something other than emptiness. He felt like a father. "Where to, sir?" his driver asked. Dante looked up at the building, at the window where his son lived, where the woman he loved was trying to protect a heart he'd already broken. "Home," he said quietly, "but not the one with my wife." "Sir? Find me an apartment, close to here. Somewhere I can stay when I'm with them. Somewhere that doesn't smell like lies." "Understood." The car pulled away, and Dante Kang, the Korean crime lord who controlled half of New York's underworld, smiled. Because his son liked strawberries, and that felt like the most important thing in the world. 3 weeks passed like a carefully choreographed dance, Dante showing up every morning with offerings, strawberries, books, a stuffed lion Elijah named Roar, Amara maintaining boundaries that grew thinner each day, and Elijah falling in love with the father he didn't know he'd been missing. But the real world doesn't pause for small miracles. And in Dante's world, secrets had expiration dates. The call came on a Tuesday. Amara was at her afternoon job, waitressing at a diner in Midtown, when her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Almost. "Ms. Baptiste?" The voice was female, polished, cold. "This is Christine Kang. I believe you know my husband." The blood drained from Amara's face. The plate she was holding slipped from her fingers, shattering against the tile floor. Her co-worker shot her a concerned look, but Amara couldn't move, couldn't breathe. "I don't know what you're talking about," she managed. "Don't insult us both with lies." Christine's voice was sharp, efficient. "I know about you, about the child, about my husband's daily visits to your apartment in Brooklyn. Did you think I wouldn't notice? That I wouldn't have him followed?" Amara's hand tightened around the phone. "What do you want?" "To meet. Today, 4 o'clock. There's a cafe on 5th Avenue, Rosetta. Come alone. If you bring Dante, this conversation becomes very different, very public, very destructive." The line went dead. Amara stood in the middle of the diner, surrounded by broken ceramic and curious stares, her world tilting on its axis. She'd known this was coming, known the bubble would burst. But knowing didn't make it hurt less. She texted her manager, family emergency, and left. Called the babysitter to stay late with Elijah. Didn't call Dante. Couldn't. Because part of her needed to face this alone, to prove she could still protect herself and her son without hiding behind a man who'd already failed her once. Rosetta was the kind of cafe where coffee cost $12 and conversations were conducted in whispers. Christine Kang sat at a corner table, designer sunglasses pushed up into perfectly styled black hair, a Hermes bag resting on the empty chair beside her. She looked like money and power and everything Amara would never be. "Ms. Baptiste." Christine didn't stand, didn't smile. "Sit." Amara sat, spine straight, refusing to be intimidated. "You wanted to talk. So talk." Christine studied her for a long moment, the kind of assessment that reduced people to assets and liabilities. "You're prettier than I expected. I can see why he was drawn to you. That whole exotic beauty thing men love. Is there a point to this?" "The point is simple." Christine leaned forward, her expression cold as winter. "You're a problem, and I solve problems. I'm not trying to take him from you. Please." Christine laughed, bitter and sharp. "I don't want him. Our marriage is a business arrangement. His family needed connections. Mine needed legitimacy. We both got what we wanted. But what I won't tolerate is humiliation. And you, with your son, your sob story, your ridiculous notion that love conquers all, you're making me look weak. That's not my problem. It is now." Christine's eyes narrowed. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to take the money I'm offering, $500,000, and you're going to disappear. Change your name. Move to another city. another state. I don't care where, but you and that child will cease to exist in Dante's life. Amara felt rage boiling beneath her skin, hot and dangerous. Elijah is his son. You can't erase that. I can try. Christine pulled an envelope from her bag, sliding it across the table. $500,000. Enough to give your son a good life, a quiet life, one where he doesn't grow up surrounded by bodyguards and blood feuds and the constant threat of violence. Isn't that what you want? Safety. What I want is for you to leave us alone. That's not an option. Christine's voice dropped, lethal. Dante's family is already asking questions. His behavior has changed. He's distracted, soft. And in our world, softness gets you killed. If they find out about you, about the boy, they won't offer money. They'll offer graves. The threat hung in the air, real and terrifying. Amara knew enough about Dante's world to know Christine wasn't exaggerating. The Korean underworld didn't tolerate weakness, didn't allow distractions. A secret son was a liability, a target. He'll protect us, Amara said, but her voice wavered. Will he? Christine tilted her head. Or will he be too busy protecting his empire? His legacy? You think you're special, Ms. Baptiste. You think love makes you invincible. But I've watched powerful men fall because they put their hearts before their thrones. Dante won't choose you. Not when it matters. Not when the cost is everything he's built. Amara stood abruptly, the chair scraping against polished floors. I'm not taking your money. Then you're signing your son's death warrant. Christine remained seated, calm, collected. Think about it. Think about what kind of life you're condemning him to. And when you're ready to be smart instead of sentimental, call me. She placed a business card on the table. Amara stared at it. Embossed, expensive, damning. Then she turned and walked out, heart hammering, hands shaking, the weight of Christine's words pressing down on her chest like stone. Outside, the city roared around her. Sirens, voices, the endless symphony of survival. She pulled out her phone, stared at Dante's number. Her finger hovered over the call button, but she didn't press it. Because Christine was right about one thing. Dante's world was dangerous. And every day Elijah spent near it, he was at risk. Not from his father, but from everyone who would use him to hurt his father. She walked home in a daze, barely seeing the streets, the people, the life moving around her. By the time she reached her apartment, night had fallen. The babysitter left. Elijah was asleep, clutching Roar, the stuffed lion Dante had given him. Amara stood in the doorway of his tiny room, watching him breathe. So small, so innocent, so unaware of the storm gathering around him. Her phone buzzed. Dante, coming over, need to see you both. She didn't respond. Just sat on the couch in the dark, Christine's business card burning a hole in her pocket, and wondered if love was enough. If it had ever been enough. The knock came 20 minutes later. Soft, careful. She opened the door. Dante stood there, still in his suit, tie loosened, exhaustion carved into his face. But when he saw her expression, he knew. Somehow he knew. What happened? Your wife called. The silence that followed was deafening. Dante's jaw tightened, his hands curling into fists. What did she say? That we're a problem, that your family will kill us if they find out, that I should take her money and disappear. Amara's voice was hollow. That you'll choose your empire over us when it comes down to it. That's not true, isn't it? She looked up at him, eyes dry but devastated. You chose it before. You chose duty and family and power over me. What's different now? Everything. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. Everything is different. I have a son. I have you. And I'm not losing either of you again. You might not have a choice. There's always a choice. His voice was steel and fire. And I'm choosing you. Both of you. Fuck my family. Fuck the empire. Fuck everything that isn't Elijah sleeping in that room and you standing here trying to be brave when you're terrified. Tears finally came, hot and unstoppable. I am terrified. I'm terrified they'll hurt him. that loving you will get him killed, that I'm being selfish keeping him near you when the safest thing would be to run. Dante pulled her into his arms, and she let him. Let herself break against his chest, let 2 years of strength and survival crack open. He held her like she was the only thing keeping him anchored to the earth. "You're not selfish," he whispered into her hair. "You're the strongest person I know. And I swear to you, on my life, on everything I am, I will keep you both safe. No one touches my son. No one touches you. I don't care who I have to destroy to make that true. Your wife said, 'My wife is about to learn what happens when you threaten what's mine.'" His voice was cold now, the crime lord returning. "I've been playing nice, playing the dutiful husband. But that ends tonight. She wants a war? I'll give her one." Amara pulled back, searching his face. "Don't do something you'll regret. I won't regret protecting my family." He cupped her face, thumbs brushing away tears. "You and Elijah, you're my family, the only one that matters, and I'm done pretending otherwise. What about your parents, your organization? They'll adapt, or they won't. Either way, I'm not hiding you anymore. I'm not treating you like a secret. Tomorrow I'm filing for divorce. Next week, I'm acknowledging Elijah publicly. And anyone who has a problem with it can take it up with me. Dante, I know what I'm doing. Do you?" Her voice rose slightly, desperate. "Because I don't. I don't know how to navigate your world. I don't know how to keep our son safe in a life built on violence and fear. Then trust me." He pressed his forehead to hers. "Trust that I'll figure it out. That I'll build something better. Something that doesn't require him to grow up afraid." She wanted to trust him. Wanted to believe love could conquer empires and rewrite destinies. But trust was fragile. And she'd spent 2 years learning to survive without it. "One step at a time," she whispered finally. "One step at a time," he agreed. They stood there in the darkness, holding each other like shipwreck survivors, while Elijah slept peacefully in the next room, dreaming of strawberries and lions and a father who was finally, desperately trying to be worthy of him. Dante filed for divorce at 9 a.m. By noon, his phone was exploding with calls from his father, his uncle, the council of old men who'd built the empire he was now threatening to dismantle. He ignored them all. Let them rage. Let them threaten. He was done bending. Christine received the papers at her office. She called him once. He didn't answer. She showed up at his penthouse at 3 in the afternoon, fury radiating off her like heat. "You're making a mistake," she said coldly, standing in the marble foyer of the home they'd shared for 2 years, but never made into anything real. "The mistake was marrying you." Dante didn't look up from the contract he was reviewing. Security detail for Amara's building, 24/7 coverage. "But I'm correcting it now. Your family will never forgive this. I don't need their forgiveness." He set down the pen, finally meeting her gaze. "I need them to understand that my son is off limits. That the woman I love is off limits, and that if anyone, family or otherwise, threatens them, I will rain down consequences they can't imagine." Christine laughed, sharp and bitter. "You think you're the first man to fall for a pretty face in a sob story? You think love makes you special? No, but it makes me dangerous. Because I have something to protect now. Something worth burning the world for. You're a fool. Maybe." He stood, buttoning his jacket. "But I'm a fool who's finally doing the right thing. You'll be taken care of. The settlement is more than generous. Take it and move on. Find someone who actually wants to be married to you." "This isn't over." "Yes," Dante said quietly. "It is." She left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the expensive art on the walls. Dante exhaled slowly, tension releasing from his shoulders. One problem solved. A dozen more waiting. His phone rang. His father. He answered this time. "You filed for divorce." His father's voice was ice and disappointment, without consulting the family, without considering the consequences. "I have a son," Dante said simply. "Elijah. He's 2 years old, and I'm acknowledging him publicly. Tomorrow, I'm releasing a statement. The media will have questions. The family will have opinions. I don't care." Silence. Then slowly, "A son. Yes. With the woman from Brooklyn, the one you've been visiting. So they'd been watching. Of course they'd been watching. Nothing happened in the Kang family without surveillance, without control. Her name is Amara, and yes, Elijah is mine. This complicates things. His father's tone was calculating now, strategic. A bastard son, an affair. The optics are... I don't care about optics. Dante's voice hardened. I care about my son, about the woman who raised him alone because I was too much of a coward to choose her. That ends now. You're risking everything. The alliances, the respect, the empire built on fear and blood money. Dante laughed darkly. I'm 32 years old, and I've spent the last decade doing exactly what you wanted. Playing the role, making the deals, marrying the right woman from the right family. And for what? To wake up every day hating myself? To pretend I'm something I'm not? You're my son, and Elijah is mine. Dante's voice was final. Which means he's your grandson, and you can either accept that and welcome him into this family, or you can disown me. Your choice. But I'm not negotiating. Not on this. Another long silence. Then quieter. Bring them to dinner. Sunday, I want to meet him. Dante closed his eyes, relief flooding through him. It wasn't acceptance. Not yet. But it was a start. I'll ask Amara. She'll come, his father said with certainty. She's smart enough to know refusing would be worse. The line went dead. Dante stared at his phone, adrenaline still pumping through his veins. Then he called Amara. She answered on the third ring, breathless. Is everything okay? I filed for divorce. My father wants to meet you and Elijah. Sunday dinner at the family estate. Dante, I know it's fast. I know it's terrifying. But it's the only way to make this work. If my family accepts you, accepts him, then we have a chance. If they don't, he paused. If they don't, we'll figure something else out. But I need to try. And if they hate me, they won't. You don't know that. Amara. His voice softened. You survived 2 years alone. You raised our son without help. You're stronger than anyone in my family, including me. And when they meet you, when they see Elijah, they'll understand. They have to. She was quiet for a long moment. He could hear Elijah in the background, singing some nonsensical song, happy and oblivious. Finally, okay, Sunday. But if this goes wrong, if they threaten us, then we leave, we disappear. I'll liquidate everything and we'll start over somewhere they can't find us. Australia, New Zealand, anywhere you want. You'd really give it all up? I already did, he said quietly. The moment I found you again. She exhaled slowly. Sunday, 6 o'clock? I'll pick you up at 5. Wear something comfortable. My mother's a nightmare, but my grandmother will love you. Dante, yeah? Thank you, for trying, for choosing us. I'm not choosing you, Amara. You were always the only choice. It just took me too long to realize it. The call ended. Dante sat in his empty penthouse, soon to be his ex-wife's, and allowed himself a moment of quiet. The storm was coming. His family's judgment, the media's scrutiny, the enemies who would see Elijah as weakness to exploit. But for the first time in 2 years, he felt like himself, not the crime lord, not the dutiful son, just Dante. A man trying to be worthy of the family he'd almost lost. He looked at the photo on his phone. Elijah, covered in strawberry juice, grinning at the camera. His son. His blood. His second chance. His... I won't fail you, he whispered to the image. Not again. And in that moment, he meant it with every piece of his broken, desperate, finally awakening heart. The Kang family estate sat on 20 acres in Westchester, surrounded by walls and security that made fortresses look casual. Amara held Elijah on her hip as Dante's car pulled through the gates, her heart hammering. You okay? Dante glanced at her. Terrified, she admitted. He squeezed her hand. My grandmother will love you, and she's the real power in the family. Elijah squirmed, excited. Big house, Mama. Very big, Amara whispered. Dante's mother stood at the entrance. Elegant, cold eyes assessing. So you're the one who trapped my son. I didn't trap anyone, Amara said calmly. I raised my son alone for 2 years. I didn't ask for anything. Something flickered in the woman's eyes. Respect, maybe. Come in. The dining room was enormous. Dante's father sat at the head, steel hair, calculating eyes. Beside him, a tiny woman with white hair and a warm smile. The grandmother. She ignored everyone, went straight to Amara. Let me see him. Amara lowered Elijah. The grandmother stared, then smiled. He has the Kang eyes. Beautiful. She looked at Amara. You raised him alone? Yes, ma'am. Strong girl. Sit beside me. Dinner was tense. Questions, silence, judgment. But the grandmother, Halmoni, was warm. Asked about Elijah's favorite foods, his first words. Listened with genuine care. Elijah fell asleep in Amara's arms. Halmoni led them to a sitting room, watched as Amara laid him down gently. He's beautiful, Halmoni said, and you are stronger than you look. That boy is family now, which means you are family. You will be protected. I promise. Tears filled Amara's eyes. Thank you. Dante's father appeared. I've made my decision. Elijah will be acknowledged as my grandson, as a Kang. And Amara will be protected as the mother of my grandson, and as your future wife, Dante. Amara's breath caught. When I ask her to marry me, Dante said quietly, it'll be because we're ready, not because of politics. His father nodded. Take your family home. We'll discuss details tomorrow. They collected Elijah, said goodbyes. Halmoni hugged Amara. You'll be happy. I'll make sure of it. Back at the apartment, Dante carried Elijah to bed. They stood watching him sleep. That went better than expected. Amara whispered. My grandmother likes you. Dante turned to her. Move in with me, you and Elijah. I'll buy a house. Wherever you want. Let me spend the rest of my life making up for the 2 years I missed. One step at a time, she said softly. One step at a time. He agreed. He left reluctantly. Amara stood at the window, watching his taillights disappear. We're going to be okay, she whispered. And for the first time in 2 years, she believed it. Because love wasn't enough alone. But love plus courage, plus Dante finally choosing them, plus a son who deserved the world. Maybe that was everything. She checked on Elijah one more time, then climbed into bed. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, she let herself hope. And hope felt like coming home.